So we've just finished off Think today. So if you are thinking about doing Think for 2025, there's 5 main things to start looking at now to prepare for next year. And so you've got 12 months ahead of you. So now's the time to start thinking about what you need to do to make sure that you're ready, your bike's ready to be ready to race and give it a good crack next year. First thing that comes up is get to some races. So obviously Think has changed the rules. I think it was maybe last year, might have been the first year or the year before anyway, where you have to like qualify and do a certain amount of events or sanctioned events to be able to enter for Think. And so obviously that has cut the numbers down for Think. Before there used to be like a massive waiting list to be able to get in, and you had to be clicking on the computer and refreshing, and people would still miss out when applications or entries were released. Whereas now you could get in quite late. So you need to be able to get to some races. I think it's a great thing that they've done to be able to, obviously it cuts off a lot of people from getting to the races, but one of the great things about forcing people or encouraging people to get to other races before they go and do Think is they have some racing experience and they know what to expect when they go out there. What was happening before is a lot of people were going out there, they've never raced before, and they're in a racing environment with 500 other riders, and they're doing one of the hardest desert races in Australia at high speeds, which can become quite dangerous, not just for themselves, but for everyone else as well. So to get back to the point is start to map out some races that you can do that are similar to Think. So in other words, like higher speed races that you can do. So it might be like Don River Dash, might be Yellow Mountain, might be Kalgoorlie Desert Race, and there might be some stuff earlier next year that you can work towards as well. But the whole goal is like when you're going into such a big race like Think, you just want to be comfortable on the bike and comfortable in racing conditions. And so it's a very different experience to go from just doing some riding with your mates to racing. There's the adrenaline, the stress, the anxiousness that goes along with racing, that if you haven't done much racing or any racing before, that's going to be new for you. So you need to get your body used to that. So when you get to race day, you can know what to expect. You're not going to be as nervous because you've put yourself in a similar environment before, and then you can get out there and actually enjoy the race without, number one, going too hard too soon at the start, and number two, writing yourself off, which we unfortunately see a lot of every year. It's like guys getting hurt in either even just in pre-running or at the start of the race because they're just going too hard too soon. They get caught up in all of the hype of being out there on race day. So get to some races, start planning them out now. The other thing that helps with as well is if you're training, like doing fitness work and you're getting ready for Think, if you've got nothing for 12 months, it's very hard to get yourself motivated now. Like if you need to train 3 times a week now, 12 months out, and you're like, oh, the race is in 12 months, it's very hard to get yourself motivated and be consistent and eat well and do all the stuff that you need to do. Whereas if you have a race that you're working towards, say, every 3 or 4 months, it helps to keep you motivated and give you something to work towards and help to make things easier with the training and the eating side and the preparation side. The second thing is strength and fitness. So strength and fitness is important because you've got a bike that weighs, like once you've got all the gear on it, I don't know what you'd be looking at, but like standard, they're probably 100, 110 kilos, right? A 450 or a 500. Once you've got all your gear on it, plus your pack and oversized tank and all the rest of it, looking at 110, like well and truly over 110, right? So if you weigh 90 kilos and the bike's 110, you've got 200 kilos there. So you need to wrestle around 200 kilos for 2 to 3 hours on day one, and then back it up for another 2 to 3 hours on day two. And keep in mind that when you're racing, you're automatically, because you've got the adrenaline, the stress, the anxiety, everything else going through your body, you're automatically going to ride a lot harder than what you do on any practice day. So you have to make sure that your body is prepared to wrestle that type of weight around. So the way that you do that is start getting strong. Start doing some strength training now, getting yourself stronger while you've got the time to be able to do it. Cardio and conditioning can be built up quite quickly. We work on it with our riders and racers all year long so that they can get the most out of their ride, even their practice rides, not just their racing. But strength is the thing that will probably give you the most benefit on the bike, but it will take the longest to build. It's not something you're going to notice a massive difference with in a couple of weeks. So the stronger you can get yourself between now and Think, the lighter the bike will feel. The lighter the bike will feel, the less energy you use. Less energy you use on the bike, the more energy you'll have to ride and race at your particular speed or intensity for a longer period of time. Third thing is, for those of you that need to lose weight, if you've got a bit of weight that you need to be able to lose, it's going to make a massive difference on the bike. So if you think about how many times your ass gets up and down off the seat, right? You're doing hundreds of mini squats up and down, up and down, up and down, the whole way down the think track, the whole way back. If you're, like, let's say, I don't know, let's say it's 100. Let's say it's 100 times that you get your ass up and down off the seat. It's probably more, but let's say it's 100 on the way there and 100 on the way back. If you're 5 kilos overweight, you've got 5 kilos of extra body fat that shouldn't be on your body that you know you can get rid of. That's 5 kilos times 100 squats, which is 500 kilos, half a ton, right? So if you had half a ton less going through your legs, going through your back, going through your body, do you reckon you'd be less fatigued? Do you reckon you could ride for a longer period of time at a good speed? Probably, right? So that's a ton. If you compare over the 2 days, if you're doing 200 of those squats with 5 kilos, that's a ton less that's going to go through your body. So if you can get 500 kilos less going through your body on day one, it just means you're going to recover a lot better for day two because you've had less stress going through your body. So if you do need to lose weight, now's the time to start looking at that and go, okay, what are the things that I need to do to tidy up my diet, tidy up my food during the week so that I can lose that weight and not just get those benefits on race day next year, but have the benefit of having less weight on all of your practice rides up until then. Because it compounds, right? What happens is if you are fitter and stronger and lighter now, what that means is when you go and practice on the bike, you now ride the bike harder for a longer period of time. So let's say you ride once a week between now and Think. So let's say 52 weeks till next year. Let's say you ride once a week, so 52 rides, right? What happens is if you start building the strength and fitness now, you get those benefits of strength and fitness for all of your practice rides. So let's say now you can ride for an hour at a very hard, fast speed, and then the fitness starts to affect your riding for the next 2 hours of riding. But let's say you start putting the strength and fitness work in now, and you get to a point where you can now do 2 hours out on the bike really, really hard without fitness and strength affecting your riding. You've now got an extra hour out of your riding time, 52 weeks. You've got another 52 hours of high quality, fast riding in comparison to only doing an hour before, right? So we're comparing, so let's say you just had 1 hour for 52 weeks, that's 52 hours. If you're able to get yourself strong and fit now, rather than waiting till, trying to do it 4 weeks before the race, you're gonna have 104 hours on the bike at that same high level of speed, high level of exertion, high level of effort, high level of focus. So you're effectively getting double the amount of quality riding time without doing any more riding. You're not getting out there twice a week. You're just building your strength and fitness off the bike and getting more out of those rides on the bike. So it's going to put you in a much better position by the time you get to next year. The fourth one is race day nutrition. So race day nutrition, like we have a system that we use with our riders, and you can probably find most of it on the YouTube videos that I've put together if you want to have a look. But we have like a system which gets our riders, I'd say like 95% of the way there for what they need to do. But there's always the variance for every rider that we work with. Some guys don't like having gels, it makes their throat sore and they feel sick. Some guys don't like putting Powerade in their Camelback because they don't drink, they find it hard to drink out of their Camelback while they're riding. Some guys we need to change and use different brands of, instead of using Powerade, use Gatorade or use the scoops of powder. Some guys we need to dilute the mix a little bit more and put more water in so it's not as sweet. Some guys we need to get them eating 4 hours before they go and race because they get really nervous and stressed. Some guys need to bring that forward and eat 2 hours out. So there's all these little variances that happen from rider to rider. There's the overall system which gets us 95% of the way there. And then there's that 5% variance, which is where the coaching comes in for each individual rider to make sure they've got a clear plan of what's going to work specifically for them. And the only way you can get that dialed in is by practicing. Okay, you're going to go out there first and do a ride or do a race, and you're going to get 95% of the way there. And there's going to be things that aren't right with that system that you need to dial in and need to change for the next time. The only way you're going to know how to do that stuff is putting yourself in a similar environment to Think, so in other words, a race day, and testing this stuff out. So if you don't do any test days and don't prioritize it, it's very hard to dial in your nutrition strategy. The reason nutrition is important is because that's your fuel tank for your body for the race. Doesn't matter about all the training. You could be the fittest person, right? You could do all the gym work, all the off the bike stuff, even do all the on the bike stuff, go riding 5 times a week. If your nutrition is not dialed in on race day, it's not gonna matter. You got no fuel in the fuel tank. It's exactly like your bike, right? Like if you're riding, if you get the motor done and get the suspension done and get the handlebars set up and get an oversized fuel tank and put steg pegs on it and get desert racing, moose tube wheels, whatever. All of that stuff is not gonna matter if there is no fuel in the fuel tank. And then even worse, if you're putting shitty fuel in there, like say E85, then all that work that you've done to the bike anyway is not going to make much difference because you've got shit fuel running through the whole bike. So the same way that you put the good stuff in your bike, you're probably running 98 or maybe even race fuel in there. You've got to make sure that you're fueling your body with the good stuff as well, so your body can go the distance. Most people don't have a problem with their bike going the distance. It's a problem with their body going the distance. That's the thing they've got to work on. So that comes down to race day nutrition, by giving yourself enough time to try different ways of doing things and find out what doesn't work for you, fixing it, tweaking it. So when you get to Think, you shouldn't be testing stuff on race day. You shouldn't be getting to Think next year and then trying stuff out. All the trying out should be done over these next 12 months. So when you get to Think, you're ready to go. You're confident in how to eat and how to fuel yourself. You're purely just focusing on containing your nerves and enjoying the race. The fifth spot is finding some practice spots and getting your bike set up. So bike setup's out of my scope. I've got no idea how to set up bikes and do suspension and all the rest of it. But overall, you need to find some practice spots and get your body and bike used to riding similar conditions to Think. If you are going to a motocross track and doing 10-minute motos and then trying to go to Think where you're riding at 140 kilometers an hour for 2 or 3 hours, very different stimulus on the body. The crossover between those two is very, very far apart. We've got a gap like this. What our goal is with the practice rides is trying to close that gap as much as possible. And that is easier said than done with Think conditions because there's not many places in Australia or in the world, maybe overseas, but not in Australia anyway, where you can ride for 2 or 3 hours in a pretty much straight line, flat out at 120, 30, 40 kilometers an hour. It's hard to find riding conditions like that, especially if you live around the outside of Australia and don't live in Alice Springs. So finding some spots where you can ride at higher speeds and getting used to those speeds. One of the things that will cause arm pump while you're out there is being uncomfortable in the riding conditions. So if you are not used to riding at 130 kilometers an hour through the desert, you're probably going to get arm pump no matter how much preparation you've done because you're going to be holding on for dear life. You're going to be scared. All right. At the end of the day, that's what's happening. You're scared. You're riding really, really fast. You feel uncomfortable. You're not relaxed. Your body tightens up and you're going to be absolutely exhausted. So either find some practice spots near you that you can get to and start riding on those. If you don't have any that are near you or close by, plan some weekends away now. You got 12 months to plan this stuff. Like in a few months' time or a couple of months' time, plan a trip away where you can drive a few hours, spend the weekend away and go and ride in some faster stuff. Like there's plenty of Facebook groups, Think groups where people go riding or go riding at different spots. If you don't know where to go, post up there and see where everyone else goes practicing and goes riding. Or even organise some pre-running if you can out at Alice Springs. The whole goal is to practice in similar conditions to what you're racing. You're not always going to be able to do that every single week, but you need to be able to have at least some experience, at least get yourself out there doing in those similar conditions at some point, multiple times between now and Think, so it's not a surprise when you get out there.